everyone. Welcome back to This Truckin' Life, where we go deeper into the life of a truck driver, an owner-operator, or a carrier to understand their journey, what motivated them towards their career, and what advice they might have for others in the industry. I'm Ashley, and today I am joined by Chris Jolly, aka the Freight Coach, industry expert, broker extraordinaire, and overall cool dude. We're so excited to have you here today. This Truckin' Life is brought to you by FreightWeb, a company focused on building the best carrier optimization suite software for carriers and owner-operators of any size to help them run a profitable and efficient business. To learn more, check out our website at myfreightweb.com/carriers. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of This Truckin' Life. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to This Truckin' Life. My name is Ashley. Today we have Chris Jolly with us. He is broker extraordinaire, also known as the Freight Coach. And today we're going to talk a little bit about brokers and how they can help us. So how's it going, Chris?
Hey, Ashley, thank you so much for having me on here today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I was really excited when you reached out to have this. I mean, I've been following your guys' podcast here for a while now, so it's a pleasure to be able to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're doing something a little bit different. We have normally done truckers and people who are actually active truck drivers or retired truck drivers. But this is a little bit different. We're doing a little bit of a broker perspective. So yeah, we're excited. So I wanted to ask you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how long you've been in the industry?
No, definitely. So I've been in the industry since I was a kid. Like, I'm from a family of truck drivers. I've been directly involved in it myself for the last 15 years. I worked loading trucks in college, and I've been a freight broker for the last 10 years. And recently just kind of got out on my own here to start my own consulting/coaching business here that really focuses in on transportation sales.
Cool. So what do you do with your coaching?
Really, it's a focus in on training and development. And then I also help with process improvements as well, because there's a lot of time throughout our days that, we kind of just sit there. We don't really, we can kind of get off task easy sometimes. And it's a way that, sometimes you need an outsider's perspective to really pick these things out and help guide you through. And then especially focused in on the sales training too. I mean, there's so much that we experience as a freight broker, and there's so many objections, but we don't really work through them. So that's really the whole premise of my business, is to help freight brokers and other transportation professionals navigate through the sales process and the objections and everything. So.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about what a broker is, what they do, those kinds of things?
No, definitely. So it has a bunch of different meanings to some people, but a real transportation provider, a broker, whatever you want to call them, they're a complete third party. We don't own our own trucks. There's a big push for people to, maybe call themselves an asset light provider, but the bare bones of it, we don't own our own trucks. We are trying to facilitate our customers' freight. We're pairing those up with carrier relations to help move trucks across the country. And there's no reason to complicate it, because it's not complicated. Like, I'm not going to throw any buzzwords or terms at you. The way my dad put it, since the beginning of time, freight's moved from point A to point B. It doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing different about the bare bones of this industry. So. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you tell us why you think freight brokers are important? Because I know there are some, there's a lot of talk out there where people are saying, freight brokers are complicated or not important. Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about more why they are important?
Yeah. And but there's some truth to all of that, because unfortunately, the people who don't take this job seriously, and it might be just a job to them, that's the way that they act. And I mean, I feel like that's not just a transportation thing. That's a worldwide industry. It doesn't matter what it is, that you'll find those people. But, the right brokers out there are going to help carrier. They're going to help them expand. They're going to help keep their trucks running, as opposed to being stuck in a certain area for 3 days. When you work with the right group of brokers, because I can't facilitate every single move for every carrier that I've worked with, but I'm hopefully going to help them navigate their other broker relationships to help them improve them as well, to keep their trucks moving, because that's what they're all about. Every driver that I've ever dealt with in my career, they want consistency and they want to be paid a fair rate. That's no
Right.
different than any broker out there. We want consistent business and we want to be paid for our efforts.
Right.
I mean, there's really no big difference between the two of us.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I have worked FreightWeb in the beginning. We did do some
Yeah,
broker activities, and we still do. And that's right. You're basically an intermediary, and you're a relationship builder. Ultimately, you're a relationship builder, and
correct.
that's what it comes down to. If you don't have good relationship skills and it's just a job to you, then you can't be successful.
No, I agree with that. And, and that's how you position yourself as a successful broker is just because you're paying a carrier, they're still your customer. All
Yep.
right. They're still your customer because they're the ones who are the first point of contact at your shippers and receivers. So
Mm-hmm.
why mistreat them?
Yep.
Why mistreat them?
Right. And I don't understand, why somebody would want to mistreat their customer, because they're their customer, and they're the reason why they're able to make money and, do the things that they want to do in their life. And being that person that's building that relationship is so important. So important.
I completely agree with that. And for some reason, it's really lost on some individuals in this industry, but those are the flash in the pans. They're not going to be around on this, like the people who are truly invested in this and this is their career,
Mm-hmm.
they know this and they apply that every single day.
Right. Yeah. And that actually brings up a good question that I wanted to ask you is, what are some important things that people who are looking for a broker, looking to engage in, brokers, what are some good things that they can look for when looking for a broker?
No, definitely. So to me, I know this is kind of a buzzword right now. They want broker transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but brokers can be transparent. We don't need to brokers don't need to withhold information from carriers. Give them absolutely everything.
Right.
And I understand some of the tactics, like, hey, let's withhold a pickup number until the driver arrives, just because it might be a new carrier. It's a relationship building thing, and that's what I would challenge drivers to adopt here. Is it's like, we don't trust you because you don't trust us, and until that trust is built, it takes time to build these relationships. So then, some of the carriers that I worked with on a consistent basis, they had everything. They had
Mm-hmm.
absolutely everything. And that's what I would do when I'm booking them up, is they knew everything. There was no surprises. There was
Right.
no guess what the weight of the shipment is, or, oh, hey, by the way, I know I told you it was going to Memphis. It's actually going to North Little Rock, and none of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play those games. Give them everything that they need. And then furthermore, as a broker, it's your job to call shippers and receivers, find out any of those little nuances that a driver might incur when they show up at the facility. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
large facility and there's 3 entrances, but the driver can only use the third one, let them know that.
Right.
Don't waste it. You want this as a streamlined process.
Mm-hmm.
The driver shouldn't be calling you for anything other than the fact that they're arrived, loaded, arrived at delivery, and empty. Outside
Mm-hmm.
of the initial dispatch, like, hey, let's talk about the load. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page. But I don't understand why people need to complicate it, because it's not a complicated job at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So transparency and not overcomplicating things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really what they need to look for. And the right brokers out there for you, they're going to identify that when they're talking with drivers. They want to know what lanes you want to run.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try and sell you on doing freight that you don't want to do. I want to know what lanes you guys want to run so I can sell that to my customers,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all the same as brokers. We're offering the exact same service as the 50,000 other people out there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you differentiate yourself? And you do
Right.
that by having regionally based carriers running your freight.
Right.
I love load boards and I love all of those tools that are out there for you, but don't rely on them.
Yeah.
Use them as a crutch, but not an ends to a mean.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. No. And that makes sense. Being that person that is in the middle, you have to be transparent. You have to be able to communicate and be willing to communicate, because I have seen a lot of brokers who don't communicate. They under
At all.
communicate.
Correct.
Yes. It's
Yes.
terrible.
And on the flip side, though, I've experienced that with drivers as well. Where the communication isn't there, and that's key in this relationship, because this is a two-sided thing. It's not just brokers are evil, and it's not just drivers are evil. You have to build at this, and you have to work at it. It's a relationship is a mutually beneficial partnership between two
Right.
individuals. Not, I'm only going to win here, and then you're going to drop me when you find something better. That's not the way that it has to work.
Right, right. So what would you say is most important when building that relationship, other than transparency and, sharing information?
Pay the drivers a fair rate, like, plain and simple. Don't don't play the game of let's try and drive the rates down as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Find that consistent, mutually beneficial price,
Right.
because carriers, a lot of people, kind of fail to realize this, but carriers are set up with most customers that brokers work with.
Right.
But where we get more money from customers is we have a volume leverage that we can play.
Mm.
Because I'm sorry, if you only have 4 trucks and a customer has 40 loads a day that they're shipping out, you're not going to be of benefit to them, unfortunately, because they need a certain percentage that each of their providers can cover, So it's like, pair yourself up with a broker who is in there, and you might be set up in there, but you know what? We might be able to get better pricing because we have that leverage in
Right.
not in a bad way, but we have that leverage where we get more freight from them. We get more volume. So they're going to pay us a little bit more money,
Mm-hmm.
and then in turn, as a broker, I'm paying my carriers more. I have a saying that I live by. There's, I'm going to overpay them when I don't have to, so they undercharge me when they don't have to. It's a
Right.
very common practice that can be effective through time if you work at it, but you have to be willing to, you can't play into the industry noise. You can't do it at all, because there's a ton of drivers out there who do not play the spot market. They want consistent freight. They want to be home Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, Sunday every week.
Right.
They're not going to want to take a $5 or a $6 a mile run across country where they might sit for 3 days afterwards. They don't
Right.
want that. Not
Yeah.
everybody, but for the majority, they don't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So how would you say that a carrier could utilize a broker effectively, completely and 100%? How can they use a broker to their advantage?
By just telling a broker what they're looking for,
Mm.
not let's just use this lane, but I challenge brokers to ask those questions as well. What days of the week are you here? Is this a lane you run often? And then furthermore, like, I know some people play the whole, oh, let's find backhaul carriers. Well, of course, you're going to want to position your freight with somebody who wants to go home. But at the same time, use that to your advantage, because you're going to know when they're going to be there, and they're going to want to do that. They're going to take it for the rate that you agree upon, and they're not going to play that fall off game or try and find, something for $50 more.
Right.
Because in my career, that's what I would say 95% of my fall offs were. And we're talking like a $50 to $100 difference in what they want. So it's like, have that conversation up front. Let the brokers know, hey, this is what I need. But as a carrier, though, know your overhead, know your cost to operate, and then use that. Like, I want my carriers to make money. Every single driver that takes my freight, I want you making money on that, because that gets you to come back and take my freight again.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds simple enough.
Yeah, I mean, it is, though, but so many people try and overcomplicate this. I mean, I get it. Everybody's incentives are different. Everybody's incentivized differently. Everybody's bonuses are structured differently. But at the end of the day, I don't want to recover a load 15 times because I'm trying to pay 700 when the market's dictating that it's 750.
Right.
Because then drivers are going to fall off for that extra $50. And then if you factor in all the overhead and time of salaries that people are using to recover this freight, you're losing money at that point. So why do it? Why not just pay the extra $50 and move on with your day?
Yeah, that's true. What are some of the complications that you've experienced as a broker?
Okay.
So many.
There's a lot, there is. But the biggest complication that I always had, and it was a consistent thing, was just communication. It was a lack of communication. It's like, I get it if you're a carrier and you know what, you need to get your driver home, or you know what, they need to position them to another paying load and you're getting delayed at your offload and you don't want to lose the freight. I completely respect that, but don't withhold that information from me. Just like you don't want me withholding information from you. I ask the same in return, because unless you tell me this, how do you know I can't get a later pickup time?
Right.
Like, you're assuming, and just like brokers assume those same situations.
Right.
So to me, it's always broken down to a communication thing. Like, that's the biggest thing. And it's like, in that open line of communication. But then again, that's where these relationships come into play, Ashley, over time, when you're building these up. And when your carrier calls you and says, hey, I'm getting delayed, your instant reaction isn't I'm pulling you off. It's, what time do you need me to get loaded? And then you already have those things, because carriers appreciate the familiarity of the same driver showing up all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
They like that. They like having that. And those relationships are built, and you have a very cohesive bond across all three parties at that point.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Communication is huge. That's something that I've seen, even in the parts of the transportation industry that I've been, I've done finance, I've done the collections, I've done credit, accounting, it's just communication. You can't, there is a way to over communicate, but making sure that you're not complicating it is the big thing too,
Yes.
communicate, but don't complicate it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know exactly what you're saying. Like, I've never had a problem with a carrier calling me too many times. Like, call me. You need to talk? Let's talk. That's my job as a broker. What? If your driver is lonely out of the road and he wants to talk to me for 20 minutes, let's talk. That's what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and too, building that trust with the carrier is so important. That's part of the building the relationship, is building that trust that they can pick up the phone and say, hey, Chris, what's going on? I'm bored. I'm sitting here. I'm at the Atlanta terminal and, I've got nothing going on. What are you up to? How are the kids?
Exactly. That's your job as a carrier sales rep, to have those conversations and then find out, hey, where's your truck going to be the next couple of days? Let me try and load you up. Let me try and get it.
Right.
Because I wanted, as a broker, I strive to have 80 to 85% of my freight pre-booked with 10 carriers or less.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want the same drivers all the time, because it's like I said, it'll come back to the relationship piece of this, Ashley. It's mutually beneficial. They're getting paid what they want. And then in turn, they're not going to complain about tracking. They're not going to complain about anything. They're going to give you all the information that they need.
Right.
So why not take that route? Why not build those relationships, find them out? I mean, I love when carriers that I work with consistently are calling me and they're like, hey, I just bought 2 new trucks. They're on the road now. What freight can you get for me? And I'm like, perfect. That makes my buying power and my position with my customers only stronger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's super important. And too, they have that trust with you, and they're okay with saying, hey, buy me this freight. I trust you. Let's go with it.
Exactly. And then it's like, if they have any, because it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when trucks break down and when there's a delay and everything else. They're letting you know that, like, there's no guessing game. Like, if they're delayed, you knew about it when they knew about it. There's no, I'm calling you. But then again, it's like brokers as well. You should never be waiting until a load delivers or picks up to call somebody to ask them what's going on.
Right.
You have to have those plans in place, but that goes to an initial conversation that you have with carriers when you're booking them up.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions that you have seen around brokers? I mean, some of them, yes, they are true. You have to find the good ones.
Correct.
But what are some of the common misconceptions that you've come across?
That we make 60% on every load we move. Like, I'll be honest with anybody who watches this and listens to this. If I was making 60%, I would still be brokering freight today. I would have no reason to leave.
Right.
I would be, so it's like, there's that. Another big misconception is that we're trying to track your every single move. That's false. We have requirements from our customers that, hey, we need to know, like, we need updates. And I know not every broker adheres to this, but I need to send my customer updates sometimes every other hour, every 2 hours, every hour, whatever it is, because it's a high value shipment, So it's like, I'm not out here trying to track your every move. I'm not here to question it. If you're doing what you say you're doing, I have no reason to call you.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So nothing else? No other misconceptions? That they don't answer their phones, that they don't know where where loads are at.
If we're talking from a customer standpoint, yeah, there is a big misconception there. We know where our freight's at. Yeah. If you're doing your job right as a broker, you know where your freight's at. Like, it's not a misconception that people clam up and fall apart when stuff goes wrong. That happens. Like, that's a real thing. But at the same time, though, you need leadership to step up and train people through those situations, because I've dealt with it. Like, I would be hard pressed to find a situation that I haven't personally dealt with in a leadership position that I couldn't step up and help out a team in that environment, So it's like, every broker out there, if you're not, like, don't wait until 3:00 when the load's supposed to pick up to let your customer know it's not picking up. Like, let them know hours in advance, because you know what? You might have an opportunity to move it tomorrow. You don't know that. So, like, just call and do the right thing, do the right thing, because they're the ones who have to call the receiver. And at that point, guess what? This might be a newsflash to a lot of people. The receiver is our customer's customer. Okay. So now you're putting something on, like, of course they're going to have negative experience with you. Why would they use you at that point? Why would they continue to give you freight?
Right. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense at that point.
Exactly. It's like, to me, this is a process. Anytime I knew a truck was running late for delivery, I would call the receiver first. Every single time. Let them know this is what's going on. 95% of the time, as long as it wasn't a strict delivery time, that's fine. We'll push them back. We'll unload them when they get here. And then you call your customer, you let them know, hey, I talked to so-and-so at the receiver. The truck's running late. They're aware of it. They're fine. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Right.
A majority of the time, Ashley, the reaction I got was, wait, you already called them? Yeah, I already called them for you. Don't worry about it. I got your back. Right. That's huge because you're taking a difficult conversation off of their plate in their eyes.
Yeah, that's so true. It definitely makes it a lot easier for them to be able to go through and continue having that relationship with their customer, not having to have those difficult conversations. You're taking that on for them, which is great, which is so great. You know, building that trust is so important. Building that relationship, so important. Communicating, so important. But I mean, it goes both ways. You know, like you had said before, the carriers need to communicate also with the broker. It's not just the broker.
I know. And that's one thing that I get really fired up about. I'm going to be honest, because it's not just the broker's fault. Okay. Like, when it boils down to it, it's not. And it's always made out that way, that it's, it's the broker this, the broker that. Like, we need to all admit that we've played a part in this. Shippers, customers, brokers, and carriers. We've all played a part in this for a very long time. Any conversation that people are having today, like I said, my dad drove. He started driving in the early 70s. And guess what? The exact same conversations happened in the 70s, 80s. Now, like, it hasn't changed. Right. It's because people aren't willing to just accept the fact that, hey, we need to work together to improve our process. Right. Like, it's that simple.
But how do you do that? How do you take that and improve the actual process? I mean, I guess that would be up to the individual that's working on the load, correct?
I just think at the end of the day, you need to humanize this job, because you're dealing with people. Like, they're not animals. They're not caged animals. They're not less than whatever, they're not below average human beings. Like, at the end of the day, people just want to do their job and go home to their family and provide for them. That's my honest opinion on the 95% of the people in this world. So instead of just treating me like a transaction as a broker, treat me as a human being. Right. And then same as a broker, instead of mistreating that driver, treat him as a human being. Like, that's a father or a mother, grandfather, grandmother. Yeah. Like, come on. Like, why are you talking down to them? Right. Trying to remember that everybody is human, and they have their own human experience, and whatever you think is going on, it's probably not true. Yeah, exactly. It's a made up story in your head. You're assuming something, and just treating people like humans is that's such a powerful statement, is being able to treat other people, and not just in this industry, just around across the world. Across the board, just treating other people nice, and remembering that everybody's human. They make mistakes, or they will succeed, they will fail. It's just learning from it and treating everybody nicely. That's the thing, is it's like, when I was speaking with Ingrid Brown a while ago, she's a guest on my podcast, and she put it into great perspective for me. She was out in California offloading, and she gets a phone call that her brother's sick, has to go to the hospital. And then her brother took care of their elderly mother. And now she's got to worry about her brother. And then also, how do I get my elderly mother taken care of as well? And she's literally on the other side of the country. So you know what? If you call her as a broker and she's short with you, like, don't take it personally. Like, you just don't know, and the majority of the time, and this speaks with my experience as well, drivers are going to call you back and apologize. Like, hey, listen, I was short with you. Like, not everybody, but the majority of them that I know are just great people who are just trying to work hard and make a living for their family. They're going to call you back. Listen, you caught me at the wrong time. That's my bad. Right. That's my experience with it. And, and I know I only have booked a couple of truckloads in my life, but, it's just one of those things that you just got to put it, a human feel behind it, because we all have issues. Like, we all have stuff going on. So it's like, you just never know. Exactly. It's another human being on the other end of the phone. Just like it's a human being that you're talking to when they show up to offload at your facility, or get loaded at your facility. Like, why are we mistreating people like that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not right. We shouldn't be mistreating people regardless, of the situation. But I mean, that goes the same way, people just understanding that everybody does have their own things that they're dealing with. And just because, I'm being treated poorly, I should not take it personally and should understand. And even try to go above and beyond and make sure that person knows, hey, I appreciate you, or thank you, or, extending that kind of gratitude towards them so that they know, okay, yes, this is okay. I'm going to be okay. And whatever I have going on in my life is ultimately going to work out the way that it's supposed to.
No, definitely. I agree with you, Ashley.
Yeah. I could go on for days about that kind of stuff.
No,
but we're talking about brokers.
Yeah, we're talking about brokers here.
But I mean, really, in all reality, yes. Being a successful broker, from what I've seen, has been creating that relationship and understanding that people are human on the other end.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel, obviously there's a big market shift that happened. Carriers are getting a lot of money right now, and there's a lot of brokers out there who are like, oh, my quote unquote core carrier left me for this. I just don't think you realized that how one-sided of a relationship it was, because if it wasn't as one-sided, if it was truly mutually beneficial, like the way you had it played up in your head, because they were taking your freight at the rate you wanted, and maybe they had brought it up to you like, hey, can I get a rate increase? And you're like, hell no.
Right.
Like, I'm sure those conversations happen. You just didn't listen to it because you're putting your own best interests first.
That's important. Can you say that again? Can you say that again for the people in the back?
The people in the back. Well, exactly. It's a relationship in their eyes because it only benefits them when they're not picking up on the cues of, hey, can this ship a different day? This isn't going to work out for us. Like, our outbound load is getting changed, or, hey, listen, I know I'm doing these for 18 right now, but it's 1,900 out there on the market, and 1,950, maybe $2,000. I'm just asking for an extra $50. And you're like, nah, the rate's going to stay the same. So I guarantee those conversations happened. You just didn't listen because it would have affected you, and as opposed to looking at it from that. And now you lost a carrier who did everything that you would need them to do, and they were really only asking for an extra $100. And, at what cost though? And this is where I want to see people improve upon, because it's like, to me, if I'm a broker, like, especially if I'm in the cradle to grave model and I can cover 80% of my freight through text and I don't have to worry about that, then I can focus on growth. Like, that's huge. Even if you're in the pod model too, like, how do you grow a customer? I get asked that question all the time. You need to be able to take on any additional freight that they bring to you. But if you're constantly playing catch up every single day because you're holding out for a little bit of cash, you're not going to get ahead and you're not going to be able to grow.
That's so powerful. Sorry, I'm just sitting here and taking that all in, because I mean, that's really powerful. At what cost do you say, okay, I'm going to help this customer out, build that relationship, build the consistency, instead of taking the $100 or the extra $150 or tacking on an extra $200. Consistency is better. Building that trust seems like the better route than just the dollars. Yeah.
And I mean, ask yourself this: how do you know your customer's product isn't going to be the next hottest thing in America? And now their transportation spend goes from 10,000 annual shipments to 200,000 annual shipments. How do you know that that's not going to happen? Do you want to be the broker who played that game? Or do you want to be their number one provider, and now you have first right of refusal for career-changing volume and margin that would only help you out as well? Ask yourself that. If you want to play that game and you want to fall off and do the wrong thing, like, you're eventually going to run out of customers, because you're going to have a reputation. Because on the flip side, who's to say your biggest account right now that you only do enough for isn't going to leave and, I don't know, become the transportation planner for one of the largest companies in America. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to go call them, and they pretty much shut the door on you. How do you know that that's not going to happen?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Just playing your cards right and establishing those relationships. I mean, honestly, like, I can't say it enough. Just establish relationships, good, hearty relationships, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if they're going to be successful or not, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you're building the relationship, the connection, the trust, so that they will be consistent with you. And if they do grow to be big, perfect. That's a win for you, but you also have a friend.
That's exactly it. And to me, it's like, do you really, I'm sorry. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here on this one, because it's like at the end of the day here, like, why are you trying to put yourself in these situations? Like, your personal brand is so important, and it needs to hold value, and you need to hold yourself to a higher standard at the end of the day. I don't care what's going on. Like, I've been in some very unfortunate circumstances within this industry. And you know what? But at the end of the day, like, I'm not perfect, and I'm never going to sit here and say, oh, I've never done this wrong.
Right.
Like, I was, excuse my language, I was a shitty broker. All right. At times I'll fully admit it. I tried to play these games. I tried to take the easy route and the shortcut, and it doesn't exist. All right. There is no shortcut. There is, like, these relationships take time. You need to invest in these. You're not going to have a solid book of business and a solid carrier base within 3 months. It's going to probably take 3 to 5 years to get to the point that you want. Like, I'm talking, you're going to make thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of calls, emails, points of contact, however you want to spin it, before you find a group of customers, of actual customers, not ones that you're just quoting out, not ones that you might win one shipment for every now and then. I'm talking growth phase customers that you are going to grow with. And just like with carriers as well, it takes a lot of trial and error, but it can be done. All right. At the end of the day, it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about people who are working for a larger company as a brokerage? So they're a broker, part of a large company. I mean, is that the same idea as building those relationships, or what are your thoughts on that?
100%. Like, it doesn't matter if you're working for a 2-person operation or a 20,000 person operation. At the end of the day, we're doing the exact same thing.
Right. How do you separate yourself from others, though, so that you do look different? What are the things that these brokers can do to set themselves apart?
Pay attention and stop talking. Like, listen to what your customers are saying. You do not have to work for the largest big names in the industry to find success. You don't. You can work for a small startup and have just as much as an impact on your customers if you ask questions that are not me, I based. You listen to what your customers say. Like, take what they say for what it is. If they tell you they're good, don't trash their operation instantly. Oh, I could do it better than you. You don't know what you're talking about. How do you think that's going to work?
Right.
How do you think that's going to benefit you? So I think a lot of it is just stop talking as much, stop selling as much, and listen to what your customers and prospects are telling you.
Right. And the sales approach doesn't really work anymore, I feel. It doesn't.
In what regard?
Like just selling you as a person, and then not really building the relationship.
Oh yeah. Like, that's changed. That's been changed since I've been a freight broker. Like, you can't just like, oh, give me your freight, I'm going to just do, like, there's too many variables now that will check every move you make. From a tech standpoint to anything. Like, you can't just quote a customer a load and then they won't feel the need to check your rate. They'll do that now. Like, those days are gone.
Right. Yeah. There's so many tools out there now. What do you think that the future looks like for brokers as a whole? Because I know that there has been a lot of discussion that brokers may go away at some point. What are your thoughts around that?
Brokers are never going to go away. Traditional freight brokerages, possibly. I could see that. They'll never be obsolete, because there's always going to be a need, and the right people and the good employees are always going to have a job.
So what do you mean by a traditional brokerage? What does that mean?
I mean, you can't track your freight on an Excel spreadsheet. You can't, make 100 cold calls a day and, do that old song and dance. Like, I give it 24 months. If you don't have a tech presence of some sort in 24 months, if you're not offering tracking right now of any form, my gut's telling me you're going to be obsolete within 24 months. And that's something that's a small adaptation. You don't need to go on and buy a full $10 million TMS and all of that stuff. But slowly, I feel like rates are going to be more and more predictable and more held to a certain amount.
Mhm.
Like the days that we're experiencing right now, like there's always going to be market shifts, but they're not going to be as rapid as they are because there's going to be too much data compiled to where customers are essentially going to give their list of 10 providers, this is the rate we're paying this week. Data says this is where it's going to be.
Mhm.
Are you going to move it for this or not? I could see it getting to that because there's a lot of really good stuff out there. But at the same time, though, there's still, as long as the majority of this industry is controlled by small businesses, it's going to be a little bit longer before that's more mainstream.
Okay.
Because the biggest providers out there still account for less than 10% market share.
Yeah.
So
Combined.
It's
insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane, these numbers. Billions and billions of dollars.
Exactly. You think about that and you think about all these big, large players out there that are like, you're like, oh, they have everything. They don't.
Mhm.
You're just looking in the exact same spots they're looking.
Yep.
And they just have a more recognizable brand. So, of course, why wouldn't somebody go with a legacy carrier that has 20,000 trucks and 100,000 drive-ins over you? Of course, they're going to take that option.
Right.
Stop trying to. What's that?
It might be more expensive, though, right?
For who? To work with the other guys?
Mm-hmm.
Or
for the bigger guys.
No, they have better buying power. They can offer a volume discount at that point. Hey, we'll give you X amount of trailers at this rate 12 months out of the year.
So then I wonder how a smaller carrier would be successful in selling their services.
I think as a smaller carrier,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm not saying not go after larger shippers and receivers, but I think you need to carve out the area of the country you want to run.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be glamorous possibly, but if you're a 1 or a 2 truck operation, like, you know, I use this example. My dad drove Minneapolis to New York City every week for 35 years. That's what he did. He didn't really deviate away from that. Not very often, you know, like he might go up to Connecticut every once in a while. He might be, you know, his load going down to Maryland or Jersey, but he pretty much ran that lane every week. Didn't really deviate away from that. So I think for a smaller carrier, you need to be able to do that and you need to do it well. So where it's like, you know what, if you're if you have 3 trucks and you're available Monday, Wednesday, Friday, be available Monday, Wednesday, Friday for those 3 trucks and don't give freight back.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So your dad was in the industry for how many years? 35?
Yes. 35 years.
Is that what made you want to get into the industry?
You know, it's interesting when you word it like that. My dad always told me he never wanted me to drive a truck ever since I was a kid because I wanted to drive. Like that's what, like I love semis. Like I still to this day find myself staring at semis like a little kid. But my dad always told me he doesn't want me to drive. He wanted me to work with my brain, not my back. And I got into freight kind of on a whim. Like I moved out west here and a good friend of mine, his college roommate was a branch manager for the freight brokerage that I started working at. So I was like, whoa, you guys are going to pay me a salary? I don't know what a salary is. I'm a farm kid, you know? And then like, oh, there's health insurance too? Sweet. Right. So then I packed up my truck. I moved out west. And that's kind of how I got involved in it. I didn't have any intentions on following the career foot. Like I honestly wanted to drive for a very long time. And my dad always said no. Because I asked him, like, can you teach me how to drive a truck? He says, absolutely not.
Did you ever go on trips with him?
All the time as a kid.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that was how.
He only did that one lane though, right?
Yes, for the majority. I mean, there's times like I got to like, there was one time like I went to New York City a bunch growing up as a kid. You know, I've been to Connecticut with him, Virginia with him, Maryland with him, New Jersey. You know, it was fun. Like I got to experience a lot. Like that's how, like 2 weeks out of every summer when I was outside of like playing baseball and stuff, I was in the truck with my dad. And then the older I got, he stayed more local. So I would like, you know, a couple of days a week over the summer, I'd just ride around in his truck with him doing local work in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've never ridden in a truck before. I'm pretty interested. We actually, hopefully I'll be riding in a truck here soon. We'll see.
Nice. Ingrid Brown comes out to Phoenix all the time. Hit her up.
Does she?
She'd probably take you.
That's a good Good mention. I might have to reach out to her too.
Reach out to her because she goes to a food DC down here in Chandler.
She goes to a what?
A food
Oh, food
distribution
distribution center.
Yeah, a food distribution center down here in Chandler. It's literally like 2 miles from my house. So
really? Oh, that's
yeah,
cool. That's
that'd be
really
fun.
awesome.
I think you should do that. You should do like an overnight trip because there was times where me and her were talking where she'll deliver in Phoenix here, but then she'll get reloaded and go over to Los Angeles and then come back. So you might be able to do an overnight little run with her or something.
Hey, I'm gonna have to do that. You might have to do an official introduction.
Of course.
I've talked to Ingrid a little bit, but
yeah,
I would love that. That would be really awesome.
I know it'd be fun. Like, and that's another thing for brokers out there too. I challenge you, if you haven't been in a truck before, go to a local trucking company and see if you can ride around for a day, so why that driver's not answering your phone call at 4:00 in rush hour traffic, because it's stressful. It's a stressful situation to be driving around in. I want you to see how difficult it is to get in and out of facilities at times. And furthermore, how many brokers out there know what a dolly is? How many brokers out there know how to adjust tandems on trailers?
Right.
How many brokers out there know how to adjust the fifth wheel? They don't.
Right.
So why not learn? It's fun.
Yeah, and that's so true, because it does give you a different perspective of what that other person is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It's not necessarily about you or something that you're doing, or they're ignoring you. It's that they're driving around this big truck.
80,000 pounds of steel.
Yeah. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are probably not the easiest to drive and shift and, turn, all the things, park.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for anybody who's looking to be a broker, who's already in the brokerage industry? Do you have any advice for them on how to be successful, ultimately just be successful?
The most important piece is literally, it's always like when we've mentioned this, and we're going to talk about this till we're blue in the face, Ashley, is it's always going to boil down to communication and owning your word. I feel if you can't do something, tell your customer you can't do it. It's that simple. You just don't want to overcommit and underdeliver, because you're only as good as your last shipment, you guys. I don't care if you've been working with this customer for 10 years. If you do something that is off-putting to them, they're going to pull your business. It might not be all of it, but they're going to scale you back and they're going to look for a replacement. Don't give them a reason. Every single time you're out there making your cold calls, broker, and you hear we're good, like our current providers are doing everything, be those providers. Mm-hmm. Because those cold calls that you make and then they take your call, it's because somebody's messing up and somebody's not doing what you're going to promise them that you're going to do. So you have one shot to earn their freight every single day. You should strive to earn their business every single day, and not because when you get the accounts, like, that's not easy street. That's when the real work begins.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, honestly, I'm so thankful to have you here today. It's been so fun talking to you. Everybody, please follow Chris. He is amazing. He covers a lot of great topics. My favorite one is the mental health one. Huge proponent for mental health. Regardless of what industry you're in, huge proponent for mental health, especially drivers nowadays. There's so many things that are going on in this world, and we need our drivers and we need them to be in top-notch shape. And yeah, follow Chris. He's awesome.
I appreciate that very much, Ashley. And, to touch on that mental health thing one more time, we all deal with stuff, and it's not, don't look at it as a stigma, and be there for people when it boils down to it. If they need help, listen to them, talk to them, be a resource for them. If you don't know what to say, find the resources for them to call, and just be there for them. Like, we have to be there for each other as all of humanity. We have to be there for each other when it boils down to it. And mental health is something that is just it's becoming more and more prevalent. But that's a good thing, though, in the sense that people are finally feeling like they can talk about it without judgment.
Yep.
So
I totally agree. And, it brings it back full circle to the human aspect of it.
Yep.
Everybody's a human. You just have to remember that the person that you're talking to is a human, and they may say something, they may make a mistake, something might happen, but it's not a reflection of who they are as a person. It's just, they might be going through something, and just trying to remember and remind yourself that they could be going through something. You just don't know what's happening in their lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. We need to
Of
have
course.
another talk sometime soon.
Anytime.
We love you. And he's actually going to be, Chris will be joining us on our roundtable here soon in the next month. It's going to be centered around tech and how tech is impacting the logistics and transportation industries. So it'll be fun. Check it out. We'll be having some announcements on that soon and signups for it soon. So yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Have a good day.
You as well, Ashley. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.